Welcome back to Shimmering Skies, one of the most painful skyblocks that exists in Terraria. In the last episode, I founded a luxury hotel empire, lost countless hours of my short existence here on this plane of reality to fishing, and finally touched some grass. At this point, I've spent over 30 hours in this world and only killed one boss, and I'd like to change that. Other than hoping for a random king slime spawn, the next boss I can work towards is Queen Bee. For that, I'm going to need a jungle though, so I lay down some rows of mud which will double as a Terraria bulb and life fruit farm in Hardmode. Getting jungle grass to spawn on this is going to be much more difficult though, and is for the moment restricted by the growth of my crimson biome. While this grows, I extend my hill bridge across the entire right side of the underworld, a decision which I am sure I won't live to regret. By the time that's done, my crimson has expanded to the point where I can now fish in it, obtaining a bunch of new goodies such as the panic necklace, crimson rod, the rotted fork, and after a second session, the Undertaker. Having this in my inventory allows the arms dealer to move in, so I buy a mini shark and plenty of bullets to use with it. Unfortunately at this point, there's not much I can do other than watching grass grow, fishing, sleeping, and of course, fighting my demons in hell for the off chance that they offer me a book in return. Eventually the crimson grass does grow, and I can now engage in phase 2 of my plan for a jungle. Usually you'd just buy some purification powder from the Dryad to turn this crimson mud into jungle grass, but once again the remix seed rears its ugly head to make this process at least a little bit more complex. You see, in remix worlds, the Dryad doesn't sell purification powder. Instead you have to go to the bother of growing crimson grass, hoping that a vicious mushroom spawns on it, turning that vicious mushroom into vicious powder, and finally throwing that vicious powder into shimmer to get purification powder. All that to say, we now have jungle grass. At least a single block of it, which will take multiple hours to grow into a full-on jungle, meaning that for me it's back to fishing, sleeping, and fighting demons. After a while, I figure out a much quicker way to get a jungle biome. If I replace some of the mud blocks with dirt, I can then place grass seeds on them, use vicious powder to turn it into crimson grass, and leave it for a while to spread to the nearby mud blocks. While that grows in the background, I construct a small arena below the farm to use as my Queen Bee arena, even going so far as to cover the whole thing in walls so that enemies don't spawn inside it. By the time I'm around halfway through this, the crimson grass has spread to the point where I can use purification powder on it to get jungle grass, without needing to wait multiple hours for it to grow on its own. Then, while finishing up the walls on the arena, King Slime spawns from a random slime kill. This has a small chance of happening every time you kill a slime in remix seeds, as a replacement for slime rain which cannot occur. The fight is pretty easy, with the only real danger coming right at the end where he hits me twice in quick succession. But I managed to take him down all the same and get lucky enough for his bag to drop the slimy saddle. With that small distraction out of the way, I finish off the arena and get started fishing in my newly formed jungle biome. From the crates I get a boomstick, anklet of the wind, staff of regrowth, feral claws, and a fiberglass fishing pole. All in all, some of the best loot I've got so far, minus the fishing pole as it's already outclassed by my goldenrod. I take down some jungle enemies so I can use their drops to craft a snapthorn, then create some honey blocks using water and honey, throw a few of them into shimmer to get hive blocks, and use these to create the abomination needed to spawn Queen Bee, which I quickly regret. Now me dying here is likely just a skill issue, but I still decide that before my rematch I want to make a blade of grass, hoping that it might help. It didn't, and I died once again to Queen Bee. I then decided to change things up and die to Skeleton instead, which you could argue probably wasn't the best idea. In all reality, these boss fights were really just another distraction from what I should have been doing this whole time. Spending yet another hour and a half of my life in the underworld farming for a demon scythe. I hope this small collection of banners goes some way to conveying how long farming for this drop took. And that's not even all of them. I also have a bunch in chests at spawn, and have deleted a lot to save on inventory space. Regardless, it was all worth it, as I now had potentially the best free Hardmode weapon available in this map, and it sees absolutely no issue in destroying Queen Bee. Wait, that wasn't supposed to happen. Well, at least I got close, which proves this strategy can be effective. So I resummon the Queen Bee and focus more on dodging, and this time I come out victorious. The bee gun is probably the best weapon drop I could have got from her, and I also now have the honeycomb and hive pack to synergize with it, along with the beeswax needed to make a hornet staff. All that to say, I was now ready for a rematch with Skeletron. I said, I was now ready for a rematch with Skeletron. That's more like it. With Skeletron down, my next major goal is defeating the Wall of Flesh, which you may think won't be too difficult. We have a completely open area in the underworld to fight it, have some of the most damaging weapons in pre-hard mode, and have excellent accessories for both mobility and damage. Now, while all that is true, it's also worth noting that this map uses a custom world size, which is just under half the width of the smallest vanilla world. I'd also like to remind you that this is in Legendary mode, which means the wall has double the health that it would normally have in Master mode, along with being much faster and having more defense. Needless to say, I have my work cut out for me. The first thing I can do to increase my damage output is negate the need for mobility accessories. I do this by laying a rail all the way across the underworld, which has the added benefit of not letting fire imps spawn, which is also a thing the wall will do in Legendary mode. With these slots freed up from mobility accessories, I can then focus on refilling them with damaging ones. The first of which is obviously the Sharktooth necklace. So I spawn a Blood Moon and tear through the enemies until one drops. I then combine this with the Honeycomb from the Queen Bee to make the Stinger necklace, perhaps the best damage boosting accessory in pre-hard mode. I then buy the Pygmy necklace from the Witch Doctor for an extra minion, and equip the Bone Glove dropped by Skeletron, then head back to the underworld and start my second attempt against the wall. The Demon Scythe did deal decent damage to the wall, but even if the lasers didn't kill me, I wouldn't have managed to kill the wall before reaching the end of my world. In short, I need to find a way to increase both my damage and survivability, which is remarkably difficult considering you usually have to trade one for the other. First I try out switching to melee and use the Star Fury in the hopes of hitting multiple segments at once. Having to stay so close to the wall to deal damage hurts my health even more, so I have to retreat every so often to regain health while dealing no damage, so it's clear this strategy won't work. Next I thought I'd try out the Blood Rainbow, mainly to see how good its damage would be. Usually this bow would be entirely impractical to use against the wall, as its projectiles don't pass through blocks. But given the entire point of this playthrough is that there isn't many blocks, that's not an issue. What is an issue, however, is the fact that this deals even less damage and puts me in more danger than the Demon Scythe, which after my testing still looked like the best option. I was somehow going to have to make the Demon Scythe work, and my first thought was to add an extra line of rails just above my current one so that I could dodge the lasers and stay alive a little longer. This ends up being more difficult than I was expecting, as once you're on the top rail the only way to drop to the bottom one is to dismount and remount at just the right time, otherwise you'll fall through and be stuck on the platform below. Even when the transition does go smoothly, I lose all momentum upon reaching the lower track, so it seems track switching is out of the question too. That means taking damage from the lasers, and if I'm going to be taking damage I may as well benefit from it. So I place down enough graves to make yet another graveyard biome, and combine my Panic Necklace with a Mana Crystal to get a Band of Star Power. With this and a Band of Regeneration I can craft a Band of Mana Generation, and combining that with a Shackle will get me Mana Cuffs, granting me a small boost of mana when I'm hit. You may also know that I've been at 380 health for quite some time now, and that's because I was planning to avoid any more fishing until I got to hard mode. It's seeming that won't be possible at this point with how much damage I'm taking from the Wall of Flesh, so unfortunately I have to pick up my rod once again for a final fishing grind of pre-hard mode. This wouldn't be so bad if I didn't run out of crate potions almost immediately, and I don't want to pay the steep herb cost to craft some myself, so I have to go back to completing quests every 5 minutes in the hopes that the angler gives me some. Once again, sleeping between fishing quests appears to be the only option, until a blood moon comes along to keep me up all night. Then it's back to sleeping until another blood moon keeps me up all night, and then back to sleeping and oh look, another blood moon! At least I have some crate potions by now, so I can peacefully fish for extra life crystals to max out my health. Are you kidding me? That's the 4th blood moon in 5 nights! Regardless of the incessant blood moons, I eventually collect up 10 gold crates, and within them I find 3 life crystals, enough to top off my health, shimmer one into a vital crystal, and even have one left over for a heart lantern. This may be enough to solve my survivability issues, but there's still the issue of dealing enough damage to the wall before I reach the end of this tiny world. For that, I place a rail much higher than the two I'd placed already, and shoot the demon scythe downwards instead of straight at the wall, as this way I can hit all 3 segments of the wall if my aim is just right. My first test proves that this definitely is possible, but by being so close to the hungry I end up taking too much damage and die very quickly, so I build a 4th rail as high as I can get without leaving the underworld and try again. But as with my last attempt, the hungry could still reach me and take me down. It's at this point I had to do something I was really hoping to avoid. It was clear I couldn't get far enough away from the hungry by going above the wall, so I'd have to try going below it. The only problem there is that, as I said earlier, I have a massive platform spanning the entire right side of my world, which fire imps can spawn on throughout the fight. So I have to meticulously take this down 1 block at a time, while fighting a continuous stream of lava bats and voodoo demons. After a lot of time, and even a few deaths, I clear the underworld of blocks and place my 5th railway across the width of it. Hoping that this will be my winning strategy, I spawn the wall of flesh once again and begin hurling demon scythes at it while keeping my distance. For the first half of the fight I was dealing excellent damage to the wall and avoiding most of the lasers and hungry. However, as the wall speeds up I found it harder and harder to hit the boss itself, and it soon crossed the world with just under 10% of its health remaining. My next attempt was very similar, but my aim was slightly better. Enough to get it down to just 158 health before it slides off screen. I was sure that I'd be able to kill it on my next attempt, but then yet another tragedy struck. I was completely out of the moon glow I needed to brew magic power and mana regen potions, and I don't have any seeds to grow more. So far, all the moon glow I had came from decrafting the spelunker potions I'd found in fishing crates. But now that supply had run dry, I was going to need to wait another 3 whole hours before I could try fighting the wall of flesh again. I placed down as much mud and jungle grass as I could bear and slept through the days in the hopes that at least 1 moon glow would spawn. Eventually, during yet another blood moon, I spot one and break it to get 3 seeds. It's then time to switch to playing Stardew Valley until I have enough moon glow to craft all the potions I need. Then I summoned the wall of flesh one final time to escape pre-hard mode. All of the previous attempts served as excellent practice for this one, and my demon scythe tore through the wall of flesh and hungry alike, until eventually the wall was moving so fast that I wasn't even sure the scythes were hitting. But as I swapped to my grey Zappinator to finish off the fight, the wall of flesh falls and hard mode begins. But to see exactly what kind of suffering hard mode has in store, you'll have to wait for the next episode. Or, if you'd like to support the channel, you can join my Patreon where the next episode has already been uploaded. Either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.